60 to 80% of Utah's man-made water use goes to hay and alfalfa production. You've probably heard that statistic, but why are we doing it? Let's get right into that. Let's first talk about what alfalfa actually is. This right here is alfalfa. You can probably tell by the structure that alfalfa is a little bit different than hay. It's actually a perennial legume, meaning it is very high in protein. Whereas hay, on the other hand, is basically just super fancy tall grass. Now back to alfalfa. Alfalfa has a very deep taproot system, meaning that it is amazing at accessing water. Whereas anyone that's ever had grass in their yard understands that the root system on grass doesn't go all that deep, so unless you water it very often, it tends to dry out. Alfalfa, on the other hand, is very drought tolerant because of this deep taproot system, and let me just show you a real life example. So this front section of the field, and you can see kind of more the middle section of the field, are currently getting water, but this central section right here hasn't received water in about 3 weeks. And wish me luck running through the sprinklers. Don't want to get this camera wet. It's not waterproof. And just like that middle section, the entire back section of this field has not received water in weeks. Furthermore, Utah's in a really big drought right now. This particular part of Utah hasn't really received any rainfall this entire summer. The most that we got was actually probably about a week ago, and it basically drizzled just enough that you could see some drops on the ground, but not enough for the ground to really absorb any meaningful amount of water. Now there's lots of grasses and everything because this field is completely organic, but I mean, you guys can hopefully see here with the dirt, the top layer, I mean, this is bone dry. I mean, here's an even better example. I mean, you can see like this is yeah, pretty much as dry as it can get for soil. Again, we haven't had any water this year really. And to make things even more challenging for plants, a lot of this field is either full-on clay or it's a mixture of clay with some soil, but this is definitely not great growing land. Despite that, the alfalfa is absolutely thriving. I mean, most of this field is well beyond my knee. This is not quite harvest level height, but it is doing quite well. If we take a look at individual plants, you can see there is no wilting, it's all green. A lot of this is flowering, and again, this is the worst section of the field with the most amount of clay, and the crop is doing just fine. I mean, holy crap, look at this. If you had grass like this after 3 weeks, not only would it be brown, but it definitely wouldn't be this tall. And if I haven't sold you on the drought tolerance of alfalfa, this part of the field does not receive any water whatsoever. It's not part of the actual crop. But as you can see, we have several stands of alfalfa that are flowering, absolutely thriving. And I mean, the only other thing you're gonna see growing in this type of condition is just weeds. Now, on top of being very drought tolerant, alfalfa also helps fix nitrogen into the soil. It just improves soil health in general and adds plenty of antioxidants to the whole system. And so, judging by all the bug bites I just got in my legs walking through the field, it creates a very active ecosystem. And it's not to say that grass can't give you a really good ecosystem full of lots of bugs that like to bite you. It just, again, does not perform as well in the drought conditions. Before we get into the downsides of alfalfa, I want to go over the last couple of upsides with this particular crop. First of which is something that I've kind of mentioned throughout the video, and that's the fact that you can do this organically relatively easily. This field has not been reseeded or sprayed in years, and you guys can see the alfalfa is doing just fine. And that's because, again, it can outcompete the weeds in many cases because of how tall it grows and how deep its roots go. The next one is how easy it is to water alfalfa. Now this field is being watered with hand lines, which use a similar system to what you see with wheel lines. The only difference between those two irrigation systems is how you move the lines themselves. Now this canal is not in use anymore, but you can also water alfalfa via flood irrigation, where you just open a gate from the canal to your field. Now I don't have one nearby, but you can also water alfalfa with a pivot. Those are the giant sprinklers that you see where you have the central point, and then you have the line with several series of wheels and sprinklers that extends out from that system. So whether you're on a strict budget and can only afford hand lines, or if you have deep pockets and can afford the pivot system, either way, you can water the alfalfa. Finally, alfalfa is not labor intensive whatsoever. You literally just have to water the crop. Once it reaches its height, you cut it, you put it into hay bales, and then you send it off to the market. And so with modern technology, one single person can irrigate and cut and harvest literally hundreds of acres of alfalfa all by themselves. Same can definitely not be said for other crops. Orchards, for example, are extremely labor intensive. You have to constantly check the watering system, make sure all the sprinklers are working, make sure that water is getting to all of the trees. You have to water the trees all season long so that they actually bear fruit and so that they don't die. And then when it comes to harvesting, right, that's its own ordeal. And not only that, many other crops are just not very drought tolerant. You can see that big dead patch in the green over there on the hillside, mountainside actually. That is a dead orchard, likely dead from drought. Can't confirm on that, but given how little water we've had this year, it very well could have happened. So with the benefits in mind, let's now go over the downsides of alfalfa. When it comes to downsides, there's really just one downside, and that is water usage. Alfalfa uses a massive amount of water. The amount of water used to produce alfalfa is going to vary drastically depending on what is happening within that year. Basically, how much water is already in the ground, because again, it has a very deep taproot system, and so if a lot of water has been put in the ground, the alfalfa will be able to take advantage of that water. So during a very wet year, you might be able to get away with half an acre foot to maybe 1.5 acre feet per acre of water to grow alfalfa. But during a dry year like what we have this year, you might have to use as much as 3 acre feet per acre to get your alfalfa crop. And when I say get your crop, that typically means you're going to get at least 3 yields per year, 4 if you're really, really lucky. Now, to those of you that don't farm, these numbers are really not going to mean much. An acre foot is about 325,000 gallons of water, which is roughly equivalent to what the average household uses per year. If the households are a little bit more efficient, you can fit about 2 households into an acre foot of water per year. To help visualize this even more, this field is about 4.5 acres, which would fit a decent little subdivision. During a drought year like what we have this year, this 4.5 acre field will use the equivalent of about 13 to 26 households worth of water to get roughly 3 crops. So yeah, to get repeated crops throughout the year, you are going to use a ton of water for this. I think we can now finally answer the main question in today's video. Why does Utah grow so much alfalfa? As Utah continues to experience more and more droughts, crops that are drought resistant like alfalfa are going to become more popular. And alfalfa specifically is kind of like an insurance policy for many farmers because they know that this crop is not going to destroy their soil. In fact, it typically makes the soil conditions better over time, and they know that they can consistently count on this for income. Farming is hard. It's very hard to do, and it's very hard to make money doing it. However, as Utah continues to develop its urban centers, there's going to be more and more competition for this water. Despite what these statistics say, urban development uses up a massive amount of water, and more specifically, it uses up a massive amount of groundwater, which is really hard to replenish. So that does mean that something is going to have to give. We're either going to have to reduce the amount of water that we use for agriculture use or reduce the amount of water that these urban developments are taking. And funny enough, urban development is actually pushing more farmers to also grow alfalfa because they're getting pushed out to the drier parts of Utah, meaning that they're going to pick drought-resistant crops like alfalfa. And on top of that, if you're a farmer in an area that is likely to get developed in the future, well, you're probably going to choose a crop that is really easy to maintain like alfalfa, because what's the point in investing 25 years into an orchard if 5 years into that you're going to cut down the orchard to build a bunch of apartment buildings? If you guys want my unprofessional personal opinion on this whole situation, I think that both sides need to reduce their water consumption. Urban developments are pulling way too much water out of the ground to allow people to have green, lush lawns year-round. Like the fact that we're using groundwater to irrigate grass, absolutely ridiculous. And then when it comes to the farmers, again, we've got old school watering practices like these hand lines. We need to move things underground, so we're losing less water to evaporation. These lines behind me can be as inefficient as 50% due to evaporation through either the sun or also wind just literally blowing the water not on the alfalfa but away from it. But that's enough for today's video. If you guys want me to talk about the efficiency of Utah's different water systems and just Utah's water situation in general, I'll be more than happy to make a video about that.